Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.
The industry is changing in a way that we can have much more nuance in the storytelling, particularly around Black people. Are you sensing that? Is that what you're experiencing as well?
Absolutely. It's a pendulum swing in our favor currently, I believe. And I'm just excited to see where we go next.
I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Welcome back to Unlocking the Club. It is so great to see you all again. It's been a minute, but we're so excited about our new season of this podcast. And just a reminder, Unlocking the Club is a space where my guests and I discuss what we're up to in our lives, both personally and professionally. But more importantly, we have these candid conversations about who we've had to be throughout our journeys. You know, the core of what we do on this podcast is to unlock our truths in a way that is both cathartic and impactful. And my hope is that my guests, you are amazing listeners, and I learn a little bit about ourselves through the stories that we share. Recently, I read the book Trust, written by author Hernan Diaz. And one of the main characters in this book was a prominent business person. And they pointed out that in order for them to maintain their sense of privacy, they had to establish a public facade. And that statement stuck out to me for so many reasons, particularly because I'm someone who has found much more comfort in compartmentalizing my life for as far back as I can remember. And the character's observation made me consider a variety of things, but some of those questions I started asking myself as I continued to read the novel was, are we who we say we are? Are we showing up authentically? Are we actually acting and playing a role that we think others expect us to play? Or do we know who we are and we show up that way fully, consistently? Well, today we have the perfect guest to discuss just those questions. I'm really excited to unlock this topic and so much more with today's special guest, actress Iantha Richardson.
Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Iantha Richardson is a Prince George County, Maryland native who is currently a series regular on ABC's hit Will Trent. Along with her work on Will Trent, Iantha can be seen as a series regular in American Soul, which airs on Amazon and BET, where she plays the role Tessa Lorraine. Iantha has a recurring role in Good Trouble for Freeform and on NBC's This Is Us, where she plays the role Adult Tess. In 2022, Iantha made her directorial debut for 2 episodes of the TV drama Soul Ties and the short film Juve. Thanks for tuning in as we unlock the club with Iantha Richardson.
Hi.
Iantha, hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing really well. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I know that you have an incredibly busy schedule, and I appreciate you carving out time to unlock the club with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I was so happy I was able to do it. I'm grateful that time aligned. It's going to be a great conversation.
Absolutely. Well, we just kind of talked about your bio. You were on so many different shows, playing so many different roles. And I get curious, as someone who watches a lot of TV, loves going to the movies, and admires people like you that are on the big screen and that show up in all of these different character roles, I get curious who you've had to be this actress who's on display playing a variety of roles.
Man, what a great question. Who I've had to be. I mean, just to say, in order to play these roles, I think I've had to be a caretaker of myself in a great way, more than I've ever had to be before, just because set and work is a blessing and I'm so grateful, but it also requires a lot from you, like from all the people that you're interacting with. And,
Mm.
your body is your instrument. And so therefore I've had to be a more diligent caretaker of myself. But in terms of the roles themselves, I've had to be a social worker. I've had to be the creative director of Soul Train. I've had to be a very free flowing friend who's like a travel blogger. And most recently on Will Trent, I've had to be a detective for the GBI.
Interesting. Well, I love how you started it out, Iantha, where you said you had to be a caretaker of yourself. And I think whether you're an actor or actress, whether you are working in corporate America, an attorney, a teacher, I think so often, particularly as Black women in the spaces that I navigate, it has felt like we're always in conversation about having to show up for others
Mm,
and prioritizing others in a way that may be debilitating to ourselves.
mhm.
Can we dig in a little bit more into how did you find the energy and the time to take care of yourself?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever any time. Like,
Mhm.
I think time is hard. I mean, especially like when you add on other people to your lives, like wives and mothers, like I can imagine how hard that is. But even for myself, like time is scarce. And so therefore, I've had to create time and demand time and set rules around for myself, nobody else, but for myself around the things that I need to do in order to feel like the most whole person possible. And so, yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
time is necessarily given to us. It's very fleeting, it's not finite, which we all know. And so it requires us to be a diligent caretaker of our time, therefore. And it doesn't always feel possible, but it is, you sacrifice some things in order to take care of yourself, even. So, yeah.
No, I think time, you're spot on that. And it was late in my life, right? Just recently where I've started to value my own time
Mhm.
and understand that those days where I was saying yes to something because, fear of missing out. I didn't want to, say no to something and miss out on something that could be extraordinary. I didn't want others to think that I wasn't willing to be a team player, didn't, want to spend time with them. There are all these different reasons that I said yes to a lot of things. And I've learned recently, and it was really COVID, I talk a lot about on the show, COVID that taught me I need to value my own time. And sometimes simply by saying no to something else, I'm saying yes to myself. And by saying yes to myself, it opens up so many things for everybody.
And that's the point that I was about to say. I think I learned probably like when I was first going out into the workforce of acting. And so really wanted to be an actress. And when I got to LA, I realized like, I didn't realize at first that there were obviously so many actresses and actors here. I didn't realize until probably like 2 years into my studying journey that this is an oversaturated place, if you want to call it that, with a lot of people who want to be who are aspiring actors. And so I remember telling a friend, I was like, oh, there's a lot of people here who want to do the same thing as I do. So if I don't focus on myself, then what makes me think that I'm going to get to where I want to go, considering that you already are the one of the one if you are a working actor and able to take care of yourself? As in other jobs, I'm sure this translates. But if you want to get to your goals, I think it's something that was also probably instilled from my parents. Like, you got to do what you got to do. Oh, my dad used to say this. You got to do what you got to do in order to do what you want to do. And so it's just a matter of like, if I don't look, feel, and that don't have the energy to do the things that I need to do in order to get to my goals, there's no way I'm going to get to them. And then what kind of life is that, right? So I've just found that I'm a better person for others because I'm happier in myself when I do things for myself. So it all honestly goes hand in hand. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive to me. To be able to caretake for others, you have to caretake for yourself, or else you end up falling short, which has not always been the narrative, but I find it to be the most true.
Such a great point. They aren't mutually exclusive. And sometimes we do think that there's a zero-sum game. If I, take care of myself, that means I can't be there for others, but they aren't mutually exclusive. They actually enhance one another. And, as you talked about your journey to be an actress, I'm sure all of our listeners out there are curious. We're living vicariously through you. What is it like being an actress and being in some of the best shows, Will Trent, This Is Us, some of the most popular shows that are out today?
It's really lovely. To me, so acting on camera versus acting on stage, one is instant gratification. The other one takes a little longer. TV and film takes a little longer because you're working for months on hand. Nobody sees what you're doing except for like the community you're around. So it really matters to me who you're around, what you're doing, the content you're creating. Those are the things that make me happy. And so I think I'm just grateful to be able to wake up and go do something that I said, this is what I want to do, as opposed to kind of letting life take me. I think it was a co-creation between me and God, him saying like, this is what you're good at, me saying, all right, let me go for it. And so to be able to do that, to be able to find purpose in that, it feels great to wake up and know that I'm on the right track, not to say acting or the job of an actress is full and complete purpose, because I think that's so small in the midst of like what purpose means for me. But I think it's a part of it. And I'm really grateful to wake up. It feels amazing to wake up and say like, oh, I'm on the right track. Not to say that it's not a job. It still does come with its issues, its politics, its, conflicts at times. It's tiring. You have really long hours, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because I learned really young, honestly, for myself that I can't sit at a desk. Like it doesn't work for my brain. So I'm grateful to have something that gets me up and moving, and I get to play every day. At the end of the day, I'm playing dress up and playing pretend every day. So yeah.
Well, I want to unpack so much about this. Was there a time, Iantha, that you weren't sure if this was something you would be good at? And how did you overcome that to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times where I wasn't sure at all. I didn't come into acting from like acting as a child. And so I came into it as a dancer, which is something that I worked really, really hard at since I was 3 years old, specifically ballet, which requires a lot of technique and time and specificity and, analyzing your body and making sure you change it in the way that it's needed. And so coming into acting, I was like, oh, this is a thing that maybe I honestly had a roommate when I moved to LA who was an actress. And I was like, oh, I'll take a class at you. It seems like something that I should be doing as a dancer anyway. So very much so in a transition stage of life in my early 20s. And I was like, I'll take it, but I still want to dance. And I still have like a mind for possibly, I was teaching at the time also, and a mind for like possibly being an agent. I was just, grabbing at straws, trying to figure out what exactly it is that I wanted, but having a mind for dancing. So when I went to acting class, it wasn't like I needed to do this. It was like, let me see what this gives me and how it feeds me. And when I went in with that attitude, it gave me so much. I found that it was something that came kind of naturally to me, although it's a skill also that you have to work at. And so after studying it for a while, I was like, oh, I could do this. Like, I think I could really do this. And it creates a platform that goes to my mission in life. So I think I should probably pursue it. And it just felt very spirit led to roll into acting in that way. So yeah.
Well, my sense is that so often we think about what we do, what our job title is, what, our job function is. And if we reframe that to think about what our purpose is, we actually find that alignment that you just alluded to. It sounds like you were so clear about what your purpose is. You were mission driven along the way in your journey, and dance and ballet and acting is allowing you to further your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, what would you say, like, if we took a wider vantage point, what is your purpose in life?
Yeah, I feel like my mission is to show people who look like me and others as well through the realm of possibly like producing and directing, that we are not monolithic beings. I think a big thing in college for me when I was studying dance and African American studies was how African American women often get tied into this box of what we need to be, and African Americans in general, just like through stereotypes, et cetera, like through the lineage of years, it has been a thing for us to be these type of people. And because we're humans, to humanize somebody has been something that I've always felt is so necessary in order to be the freest person possible. I've always felt like not an outsider, but my own individual self. And to know that not everybody feels like they can be that makes me very sad. And I think it's just always been on my heart to be able to humanize the Black body in a great way. And then also, I think art saved lives. And in whatever way that I can get that message out there, I've seen it save so many lives. I've seen it do wonders for me and my mental health when I was little, and my dad passed away. And there's just so little access in some communities that I think it's so important. And one of my missions, along with like to humanize the African American race or African diaspora, whatever we want to categorize us in, is to also show kids that art is not just for fun. It can literally be your livelihood. It can be your form of expression. Some people don't like to talk. Like talk therapy is not for everyone, is not for kids. But I can say genuinely dance was my form of therapy, and it did wonders on me when I was younger. And I know people who play the drums, and music was their therapy. And I know people who were actors and acting and embodying these emotions without having to like put themselves out there so much, but still be vulnerable was theirs. And so those are my missions. And I have like other things in mind that I want to do in life that culminate them. But right now, I think these are also getting the points across through acting and, teaching when I can, and like just being around kids and being able to be a voice even on here, speaking about my journey. So, yeah.
That's so well said. Thank you for kind of peeling back the curtain for us to understand more about who you are and what your mission is. There's so much about what you just said that resonated with me for a variety of reasons. And it reminded me recently, Iantha Taylor she appeared on The Shop by Uninterrupted. And she shared that some of the difficult roles that she's had to play, in particular, her role as Inez in 1001, where she was going through postpartum depression and navigating grief after she had lost a number of loved ones in a short amount of time. She talked about that the fact that she could play these really challenging roles allowed her to navigate that grief, or those challenging and sometimes those joyful life situations that we all have. That acting, dance, sports for me has been that outlet to allow one to reconcile everything else that is going on, that maybe you don't feel like you can show up fully at home with your friends, with your children, to show the full range of emotions that you may be experiencing, but that in dance or acting, you're able to express it and reconcile what may be true for you. Has that been the case for you? And do you have any specific situations where your character roles have allowed you to further understand who you are in your real life, or reconcile something that's going on in your real life?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different like every character, I think, has a pinpoint towards me. And that's also why I love acting, because typically once you get to the place where you're able to choose your roles, I know a lot of people choose it because they find a part of them in that role and they feel like, oh, I can play this because other people may not see this in me, but I know this is in me. And so I found that every role aligns so well because there's something in me that the casting director probably saw. Whatever made my performance most authentic in the audition was resonating with other people. I can give the example of American Soul. Tessa Lorraine was really battling just purpose, honestly. She used to be a dancer, but didn't fully fulfill it. And something traumatic happened and cut it at its legs. So she ended up being the dance coordinator / creative director of Soul Train. And in that story, I just think the ability to overcome other people's vision of you and say like, no, I want to do what I know I need to do right now in order to be fulfilled. And it's calling me. And so therefore, even if you don't get it, I do. It's something that resonates with me. I'm grateful that I had a mother, a tribe, people, a father who always supported what I wanted to do. But there's so many people who didn't understand. And so to be protected was my gift from God. But also there had to be times, even with my mom and my dad, where I was like, no, this is what I want to do. Don't worry about it. I'm good. Like, I'll be okay. Just, push me along, but I promise I'll be good. And they eventually understood. So I think her tenacity to follow her own spirit and to really go for things that she wanted to do outside of her life of being a wife and supporting so many men in her life was really, really, it resonated towards me at the time.
Mm. Well, you mentioned as well that, part of your mission is to amplify the stories and the voices of, Black women, Black people, people of color. And I love that because that's what we're trying to do here with Unlocking the Club. Unlocking Club, literally like it is a space we have to share our stories. We have to share our truth in a way that I discovered over the last few years of my time with my mother, that we had edited our stories to one another to protect each other. Right. So she didn't tell me her full truth, and I didn't tell her my full truth. And we got a piece of who each other's journey was like. But then when we took time to actually tell the truth, it was cathartic, it was inspiring, it was alarming, all of those different things, but it certainly has informed who I am moving forward. And I think that everyone, other Black women, and anybody else who is on their own personal journey, no matter what identity they're in, can learn from the stories of Black women. And so I want to make sure that through Unlocking the Club, that the stories of Black women and our voices are heard and seen and told in really powerful ways that we can protect. All right. And it sounds like you did that with your one of your directorial debuts in Juve, where you're talking about Black tax and those stories that maybe some aren't familiar with. Can you tell us a little bit about that movie and how you came to come up with that concept?
So me and my co-creator, Brianna Belser, who is an amazing writer, she wrote the script and we developed it together. We set out during the pandemic. We say this is our pandemic baby. We're just saying we wanted to make a film about Black women's joy because we were tired of seeing films about Black women's trauma, especially in the midst of COVID. And so the idea was to incorporate things in our Black lives. Black tax had a lot to do with Brianna's journey in life and like what she's experienced being like a successful writer in Hollywood and her life experience. And then there are elements of Juve that also like stem from my life, my experience. When my mother passed in 2019, one of the things that I did actually off the backs of her passing, right before COVID, I literally came back the day COVID started and everything shut down, was go to Trinidad's Carnival. And Carnival is basically a celebration of the liberation of the slaves in Trinidad and Tobago. And Juve means the coming of dawn, meaning like the light shone. The sun came up, light was shown, and all of the slaves ran off into the sunset pretty much. And so when I went there, what I experienced was like freedom, autonomy over your body, freedom of your body, liberation of the Black body. And I had never seen Black people be so free, so joyous, so just uninhibited. Completely. It was a beautiful thing to see. And none of it had to do fully with like enhancers, like people were drinking, but nobody was like sloppy or all over the place. It was literally, they have a saying, and I could be butchering the name, called Bahanal. And it's basically the high of Juve that you get simply from being there, the high of Carnival simply from being there. And I wanted to make movie that had all the elements that we talked about before, Black women in joy, choosing their joy because it is a choice, and also incorporate that because me going there specifically was a choice of joy because my mother had just passed. And so there is a grieving period. It was only 2 months past. And I had just done all these things in Atlanta to make sure that her house was taken care of, bills, all these things on my own. And I was like, I don't necessarily want to go, but this was one thing that I'd been planning since August, and she was so excited that I was going. She knew exactly what it was. She knew about the feathers and the backpacks and the little bathing suit bejeweled costumes. And she was like, you have to go. And she was telling all her friends that Iantha's going to Carnival. And I was like, no, I got to go because it's necessary. And what gratitude I have to her for instilling that excitement for my joy all through my life, but specifically at that time for me to go because that was a choice of joy. And so therefore, Juve was that for us in the midst of a very dark time. Obviously, there was many civil rights movement going on across the country due to George Floyd, and obviously a culmination of overboiling pot in America. So that film came from us wanting to make a movie about Black women and our joy and our magic. It actually started as us wanting to make something that showcased how magical we are, which is, if people watch it, which I hope you do, the head wrap that Janae, our main character, uses is something to signify the magic and the colors and the vibrancy when you choose your joy, how vibrant life can be. And Black tax is also, like you said, heavily discussed, and how family can be an inhibitor and it can be your greatest motivation to choose your joy as well. But at the end of the day, it's your choice.
Yes. I love how in a really difficult time, you found joy. And as a result of it, it was a way for you to honor your mother. And I could tell as you were speaking about your mother, just as your voice, she was a remarkable woman. And I definitely want to learn more about her. But I can't wait to see Juve because of the story and because of the story behind the story. And I think that's really powerful. You and I talked before the show. We both have lost our mothers, who both sound like very remarkable figures in our life, not just our mothers, but inspirations for a lot of the work that we do.
Yes.
And so that film is a gift, and your decision to honor your trip to Trinidad and to Carnival was a way to honor your mother. And I think that was such a beautiful way to tie that together. We had a guest, Salita C. Roberts, who was on in December, and she spoke about going to Carnival and the dawn, the freeing of your soul, the energy of seeing so many people who look like us, joyful and comfortable in their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And not having to put on any airs.
And it's I want to be clear, for people who haven't been to Trinidad's Carnival, it does not matter if you're young. There are grandmas, there are mothers, there are pregnant women, there are babies who are winding down the road and having the best time. It's very inclusive. And so the joy and celebration is not just for one age range. They're grandfathers, they're very old men and very young men. It's a wonderful thing to see.
Well, I'm curious, Iantha, so this is Unlocking the Club. I like to unlock clubs that we belong to. So you belong to the entertainment industry. That's a club. And that juxtaposed with this Black tax that you've had to pay in your life. How do you navigate the club? We've heard so many stories recently about Black female actresses and them finally being recognized and given roles that are outside of the, predictable types of roles. What has your journey been like in the entertainment industry? And is there a Black tax that you've had to pay along the way?
I will say that my journey has been one of alignment and effort. Mm-hmm. So things have had to align in order for everything to go the way that they've gone thus far, because there's so many people who work so hard and yet don't get to where I am. And so I want to acknowledge that and say that I'm so grateful just to be where I am, because it's not just a matter of my own doing. It's a matter of God. And then in terms of Black tax, like feeling like I owe anyone, the only person that I felt like I owed anything to fully and truly was my mother.
Mhm.
And that was not off the backs of her words or anything that she said. It was just the knowing of how much she did and how great of a human she was. But I was lucky enough to have a mother who also said, you don't owe me or nobody nothing. This is yours. And so I never felt that. So I'm really grateful that Black tax was not something that affected me. So I can say even for the making of Juve, that was Brianna's hand in that, which it's again, stories, right? To be non-monolithic means that I don't necessarily subscribe to everything that ties into the Black community because I'm Iantha at the end of the day. So yeah, no, that is not, and I'm really, really, really grateful and blessed to say that that has never been a part of my lineage. And even if maybe people tried to make it, I had such great protectors in my mother and my father that were like, nope, don't touch her.
Mhm.
So I never had to experience it. And that is a blessing in itself.
What's so powerful about that is you know who you are. And that is incredibly important for all of us to be able to show up authentically. It's so draining and exhausting to be somebody else or to think you owe somebody else. How can you show up as you are? Really powerful. And you mentioned your mother. I've heard some great stories. And I heard one really remarkable thing that she did in her life that's not only impacted like her, but impacted generations to come. Can you share that story of what she did and how that is actually ringing true today and impacting others?
Yes, I was really little when she was doing it. Like about 5, 6, maybe 7, 8. So I knew what she was doing at the time, but I wasn't really paying attention. I knew she was excited about this project, but my mother was an executive at the IRS when she passed away, and she had been working there her entire life, pretty much 30 something years. She just hired, I think, the year before she passed. So she dedicated a lot of her life and she loved her job. And one of the things that she started within the IRS was their multilingual initiative, which made the IRS essentially, in the way that we need to use it, more inclusive to people who did not speak English. She incorporated the first Spanish speaking programs that allowed people who only spoke Spanish to interact with the IRS, utilize their programs, utilize their services, connect with customer service, basically gave Spanish speaking people the ability to get their taxes situated, which is something that is like, of course, right now, but back then in like what, 1998 or so, 1997, it wasn't. So yeah, she started that.
It's incredible, which is one of the reasons why it's important to have powerful voices and different perspectives at the table to understand someone else's lived experience and how do we close those gaps to make sure that everyone has a similar lived experience. The IRS experience for all of us, right, of doing your taxes is not fun for anybody, but can you imagine the complexities that it is if you don't speak the language, if you can't communicate with somebody else to ask those questions and get your questions answered. So again, a remarkable woman, and it shows up in you. One of the things that I read at my mother's homegoing service was, as the mother did, the daughter does.
Mm-hmm.
And your mother was someone who impacted so many, and her mission and her purpose is clear. And that rings true in who you are and how you're showing up in the different platforms that you're navigating, which is a beautiful thing.
Thank you. That is the biggest compliment. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, we're here on Unlocking the Club with Iantha Richardson, talking about purpose and mission and showing up in your powerful perspective. And we will be right back on Unlocking the Club with the back nine, where we get an opportunity to find out a little bit more about who Iantha Richardson actually is. Yeah. We'll be right back. Are you feeling stuck in your career or your business? Are you struggling to identify your unique talents and strengths? Well, I have some exciting news for you. I'm Angela Taylor, host of the Unlocking the Club podcast, with a really special opportunity for you to find more joy and more productivity in your professional and or personal life. As a certified coach, I'm now certified in Patrick Lencioni's 6 Types of Working Genius. So my Unlocking Your Working Genius coaching package will help you uncover your working genius and unleash your full potential. In this special coaching engagement, we use a proven methodology to help you identify your natural talents and your areas of strength. And then we guide you in creating an action plan to leverage those strengths for greater success in your life, career, and or business. So whether you're a business owner, an executive, or simply looking to advance your career, we can help you reach your full potential. Don't let your talents go untapped. Contact us today to schedule your Working Genius assessment and schedule your coaching sessions. Visit us at unlockingtheclub.com/coaching. Join us today and start unlocking your working genius for a brighter future. I'm your host, Angela Taylor. And before we let Iantha go, there's a series of questions, Iantha, that I would love to find out a little bit more so we can get to know you. The first one is, besides your own home, wherever that is, what is the place where you feel safest to be yourself?
Ooh, that is a very current question that I've been asking myself.
Mm-hmm.
You said besides my own home? That's
Mm-hmm.
tricky. At first, it used to be wherever my mother was. And so now I think I'm rediscovering that to be wherever I am or wherever my community is. I've had to, in the past few months to a year, really make that myself, my home be me, just because of like work and traveling. And, you don't want to be anxious and searching for home all the time, and a transition of my home no longer being physical on this earth anymore. So that also allowed my home to be with me, because now my mother can be with me everywhere. So it's a mix between the two. I'd say probably within myself, because I consistently have my family around me, and then also around my community, which is for the most part, LA. It can feel like DC, Indiana sometimes, but wherever my community and family lie.
Yes. I think so important to understand that. Again, there are times in our life where we're in such a hurry to get to the next thing that we don't recognize where we're at our best, where we can just be free to be ourselves, and understanding where that is, those spaces, those domains. So when you are feeling overwhelmed, you can quickly get to that place, whether it is your community, whether it is your home, whether it's a room in your house or the patio deck on your house, of really knowing where you can be yourself. Because I think so often in this world, we are enticed not to show up as ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. What's a situation that you notice that you walk into with trepidation?
With trepidation. Probably if I know something icky about somebody previous and I'm walking into a space with them. I'm on guard a little bit just to observe them. Never judgmental. I like to observe from my own perspective, but I'm probably more observant than I normally would be. I'm naturally an observant person, but I'm even more doubling down to see like what other people see and if it's true or false from my perspective. So if that is helpful, I think that's.
Has that evolved over time? Like how you would show up in those moments?
Yeah, I think I've always been like that, honestly. Like I've always just been like, just be aware of the people who are around you. I often, like when people get close to me, I often am, and I know everybody says this, so it's a cliche, but I'm very open and I'm like, oh no. And I try to see the God in everybody, but especially when you're close to me, because everybody does have God in them. When you're close to me, I'm like, oh no, I have to, or, the lack of boundaries come in. And so I think my observation has always been there to be discerning of the people around me, so that whether they get close or far, I'm aware of where I sit and what I want in the space.
One of the things that I find fascinating for all of us as humans is sometimes we presume to know somebody because we've read their story online, we've watched them in the film. And it reminds me again of the quote from the book Trust, where in order to have that privacy, you need to have a public facade.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you as an actor, where we all think we know who you are, right? Because we see you on the magazine covers, we see you on the show, we assume that we know exactly who you are. But what is it, or is there something that you refuse to hide about yourself?
I'm not necessarily an open book, but I'm a very authentic person. You always get me when I walk into a room. And so you may get the quiet version of me, you may get the loud version of me. I don't know. Is there something that I always show to people? Probably my kindness. Like I like to forefront with an open heart and open arms. Like even if I'm observing you, I do still think people deserve kindness. And so I think that is the thing that I'd always want to bring into a room, like a hug. I'm a big hugger. And so, yeah, just I am welcoming. Like, I hope everybody feels at least a little bit comfortable in my space.
Well, those that do have the luxury and the opportunity to be in your space, that's wonderful to know that, right, you are going to lead with kindness, and that's consistently who you are and how you show up. I'm wondering as well, Iantha, as you are, living into your mission and understanding more what your purpose in life is, what is your superpower?
I think I don't consider it mine. I consider it God's, but the ability to keep good people around me and for them to maybe shift and still be good people out of my space as well when our time is through with ease. I think I've always had a great community of friends, and I think that's a superpower. I think to have discernment, if I was to give it to myself, or just to have alignment and uh like God always just picking the people who needs to be in my space with so much ease. That has always been something that I'm like, I always have great humans around me who've always had my back, who've always shown up for me. And I think that is a superpower because, I was reading that one of the leading causes of death is loneliness by a connection of different ways because it leads to so many different things: depression, anxiety, suicide, et cetera, et cetera. But loneliness being that thing, I can only be grateful for the fact that my community is so solid and has almost always been. There have been points of loneliness still because we're human.
Yeah.
But I feel like wherever my home base is, I always have such great humans around me. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. During COVID, we were on a call with some clients, and so we were just facilitating a group workshop, and one of the participants said, "Isolation is addicting." We were having the conversation about what are you learning about yourself inside of and due to COVID. And he said, isolation is addicting. And I found more and more, obviously, we're in a mental health crisis now coming out of the pandemic. And I think you're exactly right that just people not feeling connected to themselves, to others, to their home, to their purpose is a really difficult space to be in. And so being able to find out, with that place that you can be safe to be yourself, knowing who you can connect and who really sees you, those spaces where you can be yourself are really important. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we think about this, and you are a storyteller, I think about, earlier on in our conversation, you mentioned the instant gratification that you receive from being and performing on stage, to the joy you have of being on a team in your cast when you are doing movies or TV. And I wonder, as a storyteller, when you think about the world that we are currently living in and the spaces that you yourself navigate, what's a story that needs to be told?
I mean, there's so many stories out there, ones that I haven't even read yet. But I think a big, and this is a blanketed statement of the story. I think that I enjoy watching stories, movies like Three Billboards and Lady Bird, low stakes dramas that have truthful comedy in them. And I don't think that we as Black people always get those. I think sometimes, maybe like in Atlanta, but it's more on the quirky side of things. Sometimes we have like really, really funny things or really, really dramatic things. And I think we're getting more into the space where our faces are shown in those type of movies, TV shows, but to have one that looks like fully us, I think that's really special. And I think more of those stories can be told because we don't have to exist just in the trauma realm. We don't have to exist just in the funny realm. We can just exist and it could be interesting, but it requires the right filmmakers. And I think people are leaning towards those for sure. I think Moonlight could have been that. It was shot like that, but of course it had the story. Of course, the story was real. So no knocking on that. I love Moonlight. The story was based in a little bit of trauma, but I think of the shots in that and how beautiful that was, and just having the beauty of life and the woes of life without crazy circumstances on our backs. I think those are stories that are really cool and would be really awesome for us to ingest as a people because it would help us see ourselves also as human.
Yes, we talk all the time about representation matters, and we think about that in the individual realm for characters of seeing somebody, a certain gender identity or race or ethnicity. But I also think the nuance and the complexity are the stories. There's a spectrum of stories to be told about Black people. And you're starting to see more of that opportunity with streaming platforms, frankly, that allow different people to be directors. Similar to the social media is allowing people to promote, their businesses or their projects. It feels like the industry is changing in a way that we can have much more nuance in the storytelling, particularly around Black people. Are you sensing that? Is that what you're experiencing as well?
Absolutely. It's a pendulum swing in our favor currently, I believe. Um, and I'm just excited to see where we go next, like, and how far we go with it. But yes, absolutely. There's a lot more opportunity, so many more stories being told. I think we're really working to get our voices out there. And I think that's awesome. There's more to be done as always, but,
Yes.
but yes, in the right direction for sure.
Absolutely. We've come a long way, and there's still so much opportunity to continue to tell these stories. And I'm so impressed with you and your story and who you are, how you're showing up. And I wonder, when you're at your best, however you personally define being at your best, what is true for you in those moments?
What is true for me in terms of what?
When you're at your best, whatever best means to you.
Well, best means to me that I feel free in my body. I feel safe in the space that I'm in. I feel loving towards myself and others. Um, I feel a sense of expectation and excitement about life. And there's an allowance to feel other things as well, and not a stagnation on that or a halt to feelings that can be known as negative. But it's just a freedom in me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm curious, here on Unlocking the Club, we talk about clubs all the time. And, for me, when I was in corporate America, I was trying to be in that club, be in the C-suite club, the executives in these particular spaces in sports and entertainment that I was in. And I've recognized after that, you know what, that was a cool club. And maybe I was club adjacent, right? Or had a foot in, but I actually want to create my own club right now. Club that I can spend time with people that are like-minded but still challenge me, people that I'm connected to and where I can show up fully. For you, what's a club that you've claimed as your own or that you want to be able to claim as your own in the future?
Yeah, I think producing and filmmaking is something that can be both because it's about the industry, but also you're doing, if if I consider myself a producer, I'm creating content that I want to see. I'm creating content that I believe aligns with my mission. And so it's pretty much my own club as well. I would love to one day own my own production company. I would love to one day also open my own school. And those are very different clubs, but I think they all go synonymous with my mission, like we talked about earlier. And I think that in those clubs also lie myself. It's not a part fully of this bigger boys club, but I'm bringing me to it. And so therefore they're my clubs. So those are what I would love to be a part of in the future.
Amazing. Well, it has been a pleasure talking to you. A couple questions. First, where can our listeners and viewers find you? We have you on Instagram, I believe, and we're going to put a banner here at the bottom of the screen for those to be able to find you on the show. But where can they find you, and what projects are you working on, and that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at Iantha Cherie, Sherii, all one word. And other than that, you can find me on TV. I am on Will Trent. That is the show that I'm currently working on. We just got picked up for a season 2. So go binge season 1 on Hulu. It also comes on ABC on Tuesday nights, but we just had our finale last Tuesday. So you can binge the entire first season on Hulu right now. It's again, Will Trent, Trent. And you can also find me on Good Trouble, which is on Freeform and also can be caught on Hulu, and American Soul, which no longer runs, but you can find it on Amazon. It is a beautiful story about Don Cornelius and Soul Train, something that I think was absolutely needed and so fun to do. And it was a lovely, lovely, lovely story that was told. So check that out. And lastly, This Is Us. I played Adult Tess. That was such a joy and such an honor to be on such a monumental show. And that can also be seen on Hulu.
Wonderful. So a lot of places, and sounds like I am not going to have a lot of free time because there's a lot of shows that I need to binge watch here in the near future, as well as all of our listeners. Well, Iantha, from the crew here at Unlocking the Club, I'm so grateful for you to spend some time with us, unlocking your story, sharing your truth, and helping us all find ways in which we can reclaim our power, find our purpose, live into our mission, and show up as we are. As we're connecting with ourselves and with others. Really appreciate you joining us on this show today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was Iantha Richardson. Oh my goodness, such a great conversation. I so appreciate a variety of things that Iantha shared about her journey, her story, her connection to her mother that really resonated with me, particularly here just a few days from Mother's Day. I hope you all enjoyed the stories that we were sharing today in our conversation as we continue to try to unlock the club and allow each of us to find a way as we share our stories to reclaim our power. If you have not already, make sure you're subscribing to the Unlocking the Club podcast on whatever podcast platform that you prefer, from Apple Podcasts to your Google Podcasts to iHeartRadio. You can find us on any podcast platform as well as on YouTube. And if you want to continue the conversation, head on over to Facebook, on our Facebook page for Unlocking the Club. And if you want to have a deeper discussion, join us in our private Facebook group, the Codebreakers Lounge, where we provide a brave space for us to share stories and help each other navigate the current state that we're in. So for Angela Taylor and my crew at Unlocking the Club, again, so grateful for you for joining us on another episode of Unlocking the Club. Until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.